Hey, everybody, welcome into the podcast. We are back with another special bonus episode.
Bonus episode.
Today, I'm going to be flying solo. I know you hear Brad here right now, but I am kicking him out here in just a few seconds because...
Okay, bye.
Because I'm going to be sitting down with Steve Grasse from Tamworth Distilling. This guy, Brad, has a really, really extensive background in the world of spirits. He basically founded Hendrick's Gin. He founded Sailor Jerry Rum. He works with a ton of whiskey brands as a consultant. Really cool guy to talk to. But we're talking with him about Tamworth, which is a super experimental distillery that you may remember we just had on the show a couple months ago.
Yeah, we drank a whiskey that has the most unique backstory of any whiskey we've ever drank. I don't know if I want to spoil that here. I think people need to go listen to the episode, Bob. But
it was a turkey whiskey, a turkey-flavored whiskey.
No, I think it was a turkeyed.
Yes.
It's like a sherried whiskey. This is a turkeyed whiskey. And you need to go listen to our review because it was spectacular. But Bob, I am super pumped to hear your interview with him, man.
All right, let's get to it, man. If you recall, a couple months back, we tried a very unique whiskey on this podcast. Right around Thanksgiving time, we got sent a bottle of Tamworth Distilling's Bird of Courage, which I came to find out was essentially an entire Thanksgiving dinner that had somehow been, fermented and distilled into whiskey. And I still don't quite understand the alchemy and the chemistry behind that. But I say alchemy because Brad and I both came out to a place where we said, wow, this is significantly better than I was anticipating it based on reading the description of it. And so we got the mad scientist, the evil genius himself, to come on the show today, Steve Grasse from Tamworth Distilling. He's bringing another new spirit to this podcast from a category that we've never tried before. We'll get into that in a little bit. But for now, we've got Steve sitting right here. Steve, how are you today?
Great. Good to be here. Thank you for having me. If I cough a few times, it's because I'm just getting over my Omicron.
Oh gosh, you got it, huh?
Got it.
Ugh.
Whole family got it. Christmas present for my daughter.
I'll tell you what, man. We had it back in November. It was right after Thanksgiving. So it was like, we got Bird of Courage, and then we got
Omicron.
We got COVID.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're on the mend. I appreciate you joining us. I know that it can really just kind of sap you of all your energy. So it means a lot that you're here today.
Thank you.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right. Now I've been joking with Brad that my first question with you was just going to be why, and I was just going to let it hang in the air until you understood what I was referring to. But seriously, like, you guys are the only ones doing the kind of stuff you're doing. I mean, you've got this Castoreum whiskey, you've got the turkey whiskey now. I have to ask, man, like, what is it that is pushing you guys to do these just kind of crazy experiments with whiskey and feel good about what you're releasing and put your name on it? Like, I feel like a lot of companies would not have the balls to do this, to be quite honest with you.
Well, it's a good question. Why? I mean, if you know anything about our company, so Tamworth is one part of what we do. The other part of what we do is called Quaker City Mercantile. And we are a spirits consultancy. So I work with, I created Hendrick's Gin. I created Sailor Jerry Rum.
Oh, nice.
Fistful of Bourbon is a brand that we have out. So we work with like William Grant & Sons on all their brands. We just did an amazing content series with Questlove on the Balvenie. I do all the marketing for Guinness in the US for Diageo. Own a brand with Gallo called Lo-Fi Aperitifs. So we create and manage and conceptualize spirits brands for these, global companies. And then we also own our own distillery. And so the distillery was started for really to be a test kitchen for what's possible. Because I push the limits in this place and then apply the knowledge to my larger clients. But it's also just for the pure thrill of doing it. Okay. So, but it's interesting because, so I'm a lifetime. So Quaker City's been in business for 31 years. And we are, very successful in the consulting business. And the distillery's been around for 7 years. And in the time that we created the distillery, I think there's something like 2,000 craft distilleries in America now. And I feel like, the question of why, well, one, because we can, or we're interested in what's possible. But two, how the hell else are you going to break out and get some, sorry, my dog's barking, and get some, and get noticed with 2,000 craft distilleries in America. So, I mean, but the curious thing that happened along the way when we started creating these very curious spirits like the Beaver and the Venison one, the Deer Slayer, and now the Bird of Courage is they're actually really good. So I feel like we, you could create stuff that's kind of like a one-off joke, but I mean our Beaver whiskey is really quite amazing, and Bird of Courage got really positive reviews everywhere that it was tasted. So I mean it's really interesting. The reason why is because we can.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too, is like, when you see a press release come out around Thanksgiving that's like, hey, it's a turkey flavored whiskey. Like the first reaction is, okay, this is a gimmick. And then we get it in the mail and we try it and we're like, this is absolutely not a gimmick. This is like the definition of craft whiskey. They have put a lot of effort into this.
And again, so I'm the P.T. Barnum of the company. And but Jamie, our distiller, and Matt, our biochemist, resident biochemist, is they approach these requests, these crazy requests I have, in a profound way. So I think the way he made Bird of Courage was basically made it the way he made a whiskey the way you make a gin, right? So he created all these infusions with the rotary evaporators that we have, and infused them into the whiskey and to a startling effect. It's interesting. I think the other thing that's interesting about Tamworth is we make a very big range of products because, again, our mission is to boldly go where no one's gone before. Mm-hmm. And I think because of that, we have a much more extensive laboratory and laboratory equipment than most distillers our size do. So we have like all sorts of very experimental stuff that most people don't have. Even the larger spirits companies that I work with don't have the stuff that we have.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that then. Like, I want to learn more about Tamworth as a distillery, and like I feel like in a lot of ways you guys are putting New Hampshire on the map because, to my knowledge, New Hampshire is not the biggest whiskey producing state, and so you guys are kind of just like up there in the mountains, tinkering away and developing these really, really creative spirits that no one else is really doing. So when you talk about the equipment that you're working with, the experimentation that you're leaning into, I mean, it kind of feels like the New Hampshire of it all actually makes a lot of sense in terms of, this is a state that's not known for doing this. So let's do something that's different from everybody else.
Well, what's interesting is, that's true. And I think we purposely chose New Hampshire. We wanted to be in a control state on purpose because control states tend to have state mandates where they have to buy your product. And it's one of the things about being in the spirits industry for as long as I have been is I actually find most people think control states are a bad thing, but no, they're really great for small business. Mm-hmm. But being in we are in a very rural part of New Hampshire. I think Carroll County, where our distillery is the poorest county in New Hampshire, and it's very rural. And what I like about that is, and Matt and Jamie are naturalists who are, they're out there foraging and doing all this stuff all the time. And I think they're very much inspired by their environment. And then I'm a historian, deeply into historical stories, and I've written several books on the subject. And so it's taking the storytelling of historical things that I'm interested in, and then marrying it with the science and naturalist instincts that Jamie and Matt have. And I think it really creates a very profound and unique product. And the other thing too is what's amazing about our company is that, we have a really great team of designers and artists. So, everything you see on Hendrix and all these brands, we do all that work here in Philadelphia. And so we then apply. So we have resources that a lot of craft distillers don't have, which is quite exciting.
Yeah. And you keep talking about your team, which I think is amazing because sometimes we talk with, CEOs or owners that take a lot of credit, honestly. And it seems like when you were putting the team together, like there was this kind of very intentional, this outpost, this craft distillery is going to lean into the cutting edge. Like, I mean, is that right? Or did it arise more just kind of organically?
Oh, no. It was our experimental test kitchen to go as far as possible. But then also with storytelling and history too. So it's really interesting. So it's very cutting edge, but in a very historical sense. And then the whole distillery is based on the transcendentalists of Thoreau and Tamworth is where Thoreau spent time when he was wandering the White Mountains and wrote about it in his journals. And one of our buildings is actually where he actually spent time. So it's kind of cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we kind of built the distillery on transcendentalist principles, which is not the first time we've done this. We also have a store in Philadelphia called Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction, which is based on the famous essay that was written in 1936. So we kind of build our brands off these weird arcane stories and historical figures and things like that.
Well, and I think that commitment to history extends to the offerings that are coming out as well. And if I can kind of awkwardly segue us into this new spirit that you've brought onto our show. It's not really a new spirit. It's an incredibly historical spirit. We're talking about aquavit. And it's not an American spirit. I mean, this is traditionally Scandinavian, Northern Germany. I know that Norway and Sweden kind of fight over who does it better, as they do with most things. I mean, what led you guys to start making aquavit?
Well, it's interesting. When you first open the distillery, you don't have a lot of aged product. You start playing with stuff that you can make that doesn't require a fine-tuned 6-year-old whiskey or something,
exactly.
Right? So the spin on our aquavit is that it is a whiskey-based aquavit, which I think we're the only ones who do that. But it gives it a certain complexity. I think that, again, using the natural things that kind of grow around us. And I was intrigued by the historical, the White Mountains being a place where the Norwegians came to. They built the first ski jump in America, the Nansen Ski Club, I think in 1872 or something like that. And we, when we launched the brand, we kind of tied it to the ski club and did it as a fundraiser with them. But it's really grown as from what I've understood, it's gotten some really great reviews, particularly from Scandinavians who think it's a really great aquavit. And Bloomberg just declared it one of the 16 best spirits of 2021, which is quite, it's a nice honor to have. So, and it's called Ski Kluben. And I love the artwork on the brand. It feels very sort of mid-century White Mountain Beaver's work. Yeah, which is really cool. So it's one of my favorites, and it's a perennial hit for us that just keeps growing year after year. So it's quite exciting.
Well, let's go in a little bit further on what aquavit is for our listeners, because most of our listenership are people who are looking to go into their local liquor store and find a reliable bottle of whiskey. This is not typically the place that, people who are looking for each and every release of a BTAC are coming. And so aquavit is going to be way outside of, what most of our listenership is familiar with. Now, I understand that it is typically made with either a potato vodka or some sort of neutral grain spirit as the base. You're talking about how you use whiskey as the base. I mean, just from that starting point, what do you feel like using whiskey as the base does to add a certain layer of complexity here?
You'd have to ask Matt and Jamie on that one. But I think, to me, it just adds a certain weight to it that I think it adds a level of smoothness to it that I don't get when I have other aquavits. It's interesting too, because I've been with Scandinavians who, when they first see it, they're like, "Why is it not clear?" And they're like, "Oh, it's a whiskey base," and they're like, "That's what's the word? Blasphemous." And then they try it and they like it. So it's it's our spin on it, our take on it. I don't think we would dare to do a purely authentic Scandinavian aquavit because I think they do it much better. So why would I? Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done with everything we've done. So if you know, with Hendrick's gin, when we first came out with it, a lot of it was trying to appeal to people that didn't like gin. So Hendrick's didn't have that. It wasn't a London Dry. It was something other. So everything we always do, it's other. And the only reason we do that is it's instinct. It pulls us to not try to. I always feel like if there's a really good example of something in the marketplace, why would I try to replicate it? And that's my criticism of a lot of craft distillers in America is, it's not criticism. It's more like, dare to be bold. Try some new stuff.
Yeah.
Like, why are you all making the same damn thing all the time? I think if you made some different stuff, you'd have a chance of breaking out and not being just a mere regional provider. That's how hits are made. And in this business, at the end of the day, it is like the music business or a movie business. You're trying to make hits, right?
Well, I got to say, I've got the Ski Kluben poured out here. I'm just sipping it neat. If I had to describe it to the listeners, I guess, so there is a very sort of gin-like feel to the nose. It's like, it's got that kind of juniper and like citrus peel. Yep. But if I could use the term like a wintry gin, because it has a ton of cardamom here. There's a lot of licorice on it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like if you took a really good, really citrusy gin and mingled it with a really bold, spicy rye, because I also see that you guys use dill as some of the spices in here. And, dill's a note we pick up on rye all the time. So it's like this really interesting, like a dirty martini at winter time in a glass. Yep.
That's a great explanation of it. And the way I drink, it's interesting. Before I owned a distillery, I was a cocktail guy. After I own a distillery, I only drink this stuff neat. And it's because I just want to get to the heart of what I'm drinking.
Sure.
And so for me, I drink aquavit with a few rocks, and that's it. But it's funny. Up in the distillery this weekend, I think they're having a sold out tiki aquavit class because cool. They've discovered that aquavit is really great in a lot of classic tiki drinks.
Huh.
So go figure that one out. It's also really good apparently in an espresso martini.
Yeah, I imagine that this would be like really, really good as a substitute for in like gin cocktails, just to add a layer of something that's not typically there.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? So, it's a very versatile spirit, surprisingly. But again, like I like to drink all this stuff that we make just on the rocks.
All right, Steve, you have come onto the Film and Whiskey podcast. We've spent some time talking about the spirits world. Let's move into the world of movies.
Okay.
And we talked right before we pressed record about what movie we were going to discuss, because we always discuss, the guest's favorite film. But you have two movies that are just absolute bangers, and I don't want to narrow it down any further. So you go ahead and you pick the first one that you want to talk about, and we'll save the second one for a few minutes from now. But why don't you introduce them to us?
First one is The Man Who Would Be King with Sean Connery and Michael Caine.
Yep.
Directed by John Huston.
Yep. And
written by Rudyard Kipling. And I don't know, when I first saw it, captured a sense of adventure for me, and I've probably seen the movie 100 times. And I just love the story. I love how it's based on Alexander the Great and the Freemasons and all that stuff. It's just a fascinating, great story, well told.
I feel like that movie I think that movie was 75 when it came out.
Yeah, so I probably saw it when it first came out as a kid. I'm 57 years old, so I was 11 years old when that came out.
I feel like it hit at the perfect time, too, where you were able to bring in a little more of the violence of 1970s films. Yeah. But even when it came out, I feel like that movie probably felt like a throwback to classic Hollywood. Like, of course, you got John Huston directing it, but it just has this like swashbuckling, Errol Flynn and Cary Grant in Gunga Din kind of feel to it.
Right. Absolutely right. Hey, and I don't know this. I should know this. Sean Connery and Michael Caine, were they in any other films together?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, but if not, then they should have been, because this pairing is incredible.
Yeah, they had a great chemistry.
And I love, I don't mean to spoil the movie for anybody. I love the ballsiness of the ending of the film too. Like, I don't know that I need to get into it, but like, this movie it doesn't end on the happiest of notes, and it still does kind of carry you out feeling like, you know what, though, they did what they had to do. Like they lived the life that they wanted to live. And I really, really appreciated that about this movie.
I agree. Absolutely. So in my second film, are we doing that? Are we ready for the second film?
Yeah, let's roll into it, man.
All right. My second favorite film of all time is Repo Man. Is that Charlie Sheen or is that the other Emilio Estevez? Emilio Estevez, right?
I think it's Emilio.
Who directed it? Actually, I don't know the details of this film.
See, here's the thing. I keep confusing it in my mind with RoboCop.
Oh, I love RoboCop too.
I keep wanting to say that it's Verhoeven.
Troopers.
All right,
I like all Verhoeven movies, but I also think was Repo Man directed by what's his name, Cox, who directed
Alex Cox. Yep,
it's Alex Cox, right? And I think it was produced by Michael Nesmith, right? I think
of the
so.
Monkees?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And Iggy Pop did the soundtrack.
But it's truly an oddity of a movie.
Dick Rude is in it. He was a famous punk rock. I guess he was in a band before this, but I just love and what's his name? He was in Paris, Texas. What's his name?
Harry Dean Stanton is the star of the movie. Yep.
Yeah. It's just a great fucked up movie, right? And it's just like, it's got that cool, like dark, hip, cool comic edge that's just like, you hadn't seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like kind of cheap and but in a great way.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those movies from the 80s that, as a guy who was born in the 90s, my introduction to 80s movies were all of the really safe, Zemeckis and Spielberg's 80s period. And then you get a little bit older and you find out like there's some really crazy subversive stuff coming out in the 80s.
It's a punk rock movie. And I think it's like, and then obviously, what's the other Alex Cox movie he did that was Straight to Hell, right? Where it's a terrible Western with Joe Strummer and Grace Jones and Courtney Love. And they're all high on coffee all the time. All they do is drink coffee and they're over caffeinated. Jay McGowan's in it from the Pogues. It's fucking great. And it's terrible. So that's actually how we create a lot of our brands still.
High on coffee?
Yes, but it's also like let it rip. Dare to be terrible. Dare to be great. Dare to be whatever. Like put some shit out. Like I feel like the whiskey business is so up its own ass sometimes. And I feel like come on, guys, have fun. Make a wild turkey with wild turkey. Make put some beaver balls in your shit. Like just see what happens. Right?
I love it. I mean, I do feel like we should just start calling you the Repo Man of whiskey at this point.
There you go. That sticks. I like that.
That's the tagline for sure. Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm just really excited about what's coming out of Tamworth. I hope that we continue to get some product from you guys. Maybe not the beaver balls, but we'll see.
No, it's great. I really enjoyed this, but my wife made an expensive sushi meal thing that I'm gonna run out to. So
hey, get to it, man.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Steve Grasse from Tamworth Distilling. Thank you so much again.